Greetings. This is General CJG here, coming to you with a special podcast that is going to be dedicated to an expanded universe work that was released in 1991. It's basically its 30th anniversary, and it's for Heir of the Empire. Even though it was a few days ago, but as long as it's in the same month, it should be all right. So yeah, we're going to be basically talking about the legacy that Heir of the Empire left to the entirety of Star Wars and the expanded universe, like everything, like what it did for the entire franchise. And joining me here, I got...
This is the Spider Fed Maniac.
And I got here CJ Rawl.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So, without further ado, we shall begin. So, I think the first thing that we should mention is that this is the first legitimate expanded universe source, or I guess material, that actually was taken into consideration as part of the actual Star Wars continuity. Because before Heir of the Empire, like the Marvel comics and all the and other stuff were like doing whatever they wanted, like barely having any continuity.
Before Heir to the Empire is basically the Western games were doing their own thing, and the Marvel comics were doing their own thing, and these novels, was it the Han Solo books, Brian Daly, and Splinter of the Mind's Eye, right?
Yes.
They're basically doing their own thing. There was no plan or coherent anything. It was just like, Star Wars is popular, just produce these things, people buy it.
Yep. So yeah, that's how it was until Heir of the Empire came out, and that's when Lucasfilm definitely decided, yeah, we can actually make a continuity on this, and that's where the canon hierarchy that we now know for the EU was kind of born, or at least its first steps in making it were born. So yeah. So what do you guys got to say about on that part regarding Heir of the Empire's legacy?
It was the first thing to be taken seriously, I think, because when Heir to the Empire came out, it says it was the official licensed continuation of the original trilogy or something. I don't exactly remember the back cover, but
As far as I remember, it did say that it was the official continuation to Return of the Jedi, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, even in the back of the book, it said that it was the official continuation to Return of the Jedi, which, yeah, that, as far as I know, I mean, maybe the Marvel Comics dabbled into post Return of the Jedi, or was it after Heir of the Empire? Because I don't remember.
after the Return of the Jedi comic book adaptation, they did dub into the post Return of the Jedi era.
With stuff like the what was it? The specific war that happened in the 100-something issue. Don't remember, but yeah. So as far as I know, yeah, there wasn't much poster Jedi other than Marvel comics. Heir of the Empire was the first thing that truly tackled poster Jedi in a legitimate EU continuity base. Dark Empire was the one that came months later in the same year.
I think it was December, right?
Dark Empire, yes. So, Clint, you got something to mention regarding Heir of the Empire's impact on the EU continuity?
Well, what else can I say except that it kind of was one of the few that's basically started it.
Yep, indeed. So, anything else to mention on its impact on the continuity?
Well, I guess it kind of basically, was the start for of trying to keep things concise within the universe, so nothing contradicts anything with another. So this doesn't contradict this or that doesn't contradict that. Basically, how the expanded universe went back then.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay, so that's what Heir of the Empire did for the EU continuity. Now, in regards to what it did for the expanded universe, in regards to its impact, not just continuity, but also in how the expanded universe was created. After Heir of the Empire, like every poster of the Jedi, or at least a major portion of the poster of the Jedi material, referenced the Tron Trilogy in some way. Whether it was by using the characters that first appeared in Heir of the Empire, that Mara Jade, Talon Karrde, like Tron in some references, like they either referenced it or they featured them. All the poster Jedi content, like at least mention in some way these characters, and also planets, like also some of the planets. If I'm not mistaken, that Heir of the Empire was the first EU source that had some planets. Like for example, I think Kotlis was one of them, if I'm not mistaken, and of course the name Coruscant, which the Phantom Menace later used for the prequels.
It was originally called Coruscant, which sounds really weird.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, indeed. Oh, and Wayland, of course, which later was used by several other sources. The Louis Band, Louis Sector, the Meeker planet, where the Salamiri originate from.
I think this book is the first source to actually deal with the concept of cloning, because pre-Heir to the Empire sources just say there was some kind of clone wars. Okay, what is that?
I think the first part that he talks about cloning is in regards to Joruus C'baoth, the clone of Joruus. Yeah, C'baoth. So yeah, so I guess that's when he first truly talks about clones. Because as far as I know, before Heir of the Empire, were there any clones? Like, did we see any actual like beings that were cloned from somebody or something?
I think so.
Maybe there would be cloning, but I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe the Marvel comics, but they're probably forgotten. So who knows? So this one definitely was the first one that definitely dabbled into cloning a lot more. Because in the original trilogy, the Clone Wars was only mentioned in episode 4, but 5 and 6 didn't really dive into that at all, as far as I know. So yeah, this definitely was the first one. And then of course, in regards to certain other things that Heir of the Empire that it had, which pretty much again influenced Star Wars and the EU. I already mentioned characters like Mara Jade and Talon Karrde. Tron himself, as far as I know, he's the most one of the most popular Expanded Universe characters. So much so that Disney decided to feature their own version of Tron in Rebels. As far as I know,
Metro Neurodo.
That's his actual name. Tron is more like his imperial name, as far as I know.
Core.
Yeah. So yeah, Tron is definitely like on the top 3 most popular Hispanic Universe characters. Even people that don't know much about the Hispanic Universe or don't know shit, they at least have seen Tron in some ways. So, with Rebels and some other sources, Disney Star Wars, as well as, of course, the Hispanic Universe itself. So,
I mean, the Mandalorian is I think the first live-action source to mention Tron in name.
Yes, episode 5, I believe, season 1, if I'm not mistaken, where Ahsoka was facing the mistress with the Beskar staff. So, indeed. Other characters this book also brought Borsk Phalia, which, well, he definitely was not somebody I liked as a character, even less in Ninja Order, but he was there. Other characters as well. Jason and Jaina, they apparently were mentioned just as twins. Obviously, they were not born yet. They were born until the 3rd book. So
I think Heir to the Empire was the first source to actually mention how the bottom species look like by referencing Phalia.
Yeah, because as far as I know, the only time we even heard of Bottens was episode 6. So
Like many bottoms died, and I was wondering, like, okay, what are these bottoms anyway?
and how they look like, and well, yeah. So Heir of the Empire definitely was the source that pretty much gave us their appearance.
It was not illustrated. I think it was just described in words.
Yeah. but it is credited as the first appearance of the Potens, so there is that. Also, planets like Batowi. Well, I don't know if Batowi was until the second or third book, but no, it doesn't seem. No, it doesn't seem like it. Nope. So no Batowi, but Honogger is definitely first mentioned here, indirectly, might I add, but it is mentioned here, as was locations like Joe Mark, and also this book decided to bring Kashyyyk, because you remember that was prior to the prequels, prior to other news sources, like not the only the holiday special had
Oh yeah,
Kashyyyk. So
such a positive representation of a species.
yeah, indeed. So you get the picture, guy. Oh, also, this is where they introduced the Emperor's Hand, with Mara Jade. So, like, there's many elements in this book that were expanded in the expanded universe in so many areas, and even in the main films. Like, there's a lot. There's even several sentient species listed here that were first mentioned or first appeared, including the Nogri, of course. You know those Nogris. The first time I actually saw them was in the Jedi Academy video game, but I didn't know that this was the first ever appearance. So there you go. Some sorry for it, and of course the cheese Tron's species. So there's
And it introduced the concept of force-sensitive clones in the Star Wars.
oh yeah, with Joros Belf. So
To use.
indeed. What else do you guys think that Heir of the Empire brought? Can you think of something, Dawn or Clint?
I've got nothing.
Got nothing? Okay.
No.
What do you got, Dawn?
I see. I could say that it's Heir to the Empire is one of the few sources to reintroduce Star Wars to the wide public after the Return of the Jedi. I mean, there was the Marvel comics, but to be honest, no one, barely anyone read that.
Yeah, especially
Wasn't taken seriously.
in its second half of its lifespan, because yeah, when they first came out, they definitely must have been printing money because they got into like issue 108, 107, I believe. So
108 is the recent.
yeah, that's why I corrected to 107. So it must have been an audience, but it seems the audience just pretty much got tired of it, and Star Wars just went incognito for a bit until 1991 when this book came out. So also without Heir of the Empire, chances are we would have never had the prequel trilogy, hell, even the sequel trilogy, or any other Star Wars movies, because Star Wars, as far as most people knew, officially, as in mainline media, it ended with Return of the Jedi, with the Marvel comics being more like extras. Heir of the Empire was when Lucasfilm saw, oh yeah, there actually is still an audience for Star Wars. Maybe we should be doing more. And they kept doing more, and that's when George Lucas decided, okay, maybe I should finally make new Star Wars movies. And, Phantom Menace came out, and then Attack the Clones for the Sith, and then years later with Disney with the sequels and the spin-offs. So yeah, Heir of the Empire, as far as we know, is when it resurrected Star Wars in some ways. I know some people claim that that's not the case, but I strongly believe that it is probably the case. What do you guys think?
In a way, it kind of did when you think about it. I mean, even if there was like something else like there that kind of reincarnated Star Wars, in a way, Heir to the Empire was kind of one of those few things that got the ball rolling.
Yeah, indeed. And also in regards to Heir of the Empire, another piece of evidence regarding that, yeah, pretty much direct Star Wars, because if you check on Heir of the Empire's, I guess, story of how much it's been selling, it's always been described as a #1 bestseller. Like it's always described itself like either a New York Times bestseller or a national bestseller. Like if you search any cover, all of them say like #1 bestseller of whatever kind, either New York Times or national bestseller. Like all of them. The fact that they even went as far as pretty much making a new collection of it nowadays. Well, I guess it just speaks of how popular the Tron Trilogy is in the expanded universe. First book in particular. Though I think all three of them are equally popular, but it's the first one that has the most impact in the entirety of Star Wars. So yeah, Doan, what do you think in regards to Heir of the Empire sales and recognition at the time?
I mean, in 1991, the only things when it comes to Star Wars that actually meant something was Dark Empire or Heir to the Empire, and Dark Empire wouldn't come up for another 7 months. So, Heir to the Empire was the reason why the public became interested in the idea of Star Wars again, since there were no movies, and the idea of Star Wars video games with original stories weren't a thing back then. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, as far as I know, the only thing the public actually remembered were, let's see, Return of the Jedi and then Ewok movies. Just something I would not rather remember about.
The Ewok
Or
movies,
the
in
Ewok show.
if you ask me, even those you could argue they're kind of forgotten. Maybe not as much as the Marvel comics or the holiday special, but I don't think they get spoken that much. Not even nowadays. Well, nowadays they kind of are, especially because now they were put in Disney Plus, the Ewoks and Droids show. But as far as I know, I don't hear those in most talks of the EU, as far as I know. Whereas Tron Trilogy, a lot of people talk about it. Like it's almost unavoidable. so so yeah, there's a lot that the Heir of the Empire pretty much did. Almost like Shadows of the Empire multimedia project. Its impact in the EU is felt across the entire EU timeline. No matter where you look, at least one small reference or element in that specific source, whether it's Phantom Menace, Coruscant, or Knights of the Old Republic, or whatever, there's gonna be something the Heir of the Empire brought to the table in some way. So there is that indeed. Now, in regards to Heir of the Empire's impact on Star Wars, so we talk about its impact back in the 90s, but what about its impact when I guess when during the prequels were coming out or after it, like 2010s? What do you think, guys, of how it went compared to the 90s?
I think at the time of the Phantom Menace, people are more interested in other things. See, what could be an example? There are a couple of video games that are coming out, or hell, Star Wars Republic launch at the end of 1998. So I don't think people will focus on Heir to the Empire, to be honest, at the prequel days.
Yeah, I think another reason why they weren't focusing too much on the Tron trilogy at the time is because besides obviously the episode one itself and its tie-in content, that was also the time that New Jedi Order was going to come out, 1999. So that was probably the post of the Jedi content that people were most interested in checking out. Though of course there's those that think that
And
New Jedi Order probably took it a bit overboard, with the Yishin Bong and other shit. But that's another story. What were you gonna say, though, one?
let's see, Heir to the Empire was Phantom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And people were Phantom had their license until December 1999, and I think it was starting from New Jedi Order, which was the first Del Rey, their prime.
Yes.
People would rather want to know what this new publishing company would get out rather than reading these old books. Not saying that they're bad, but I mean, it was a different time, like 8 years later after the original novel. So
Yeah, that is true. Forgot to mention that. Yeah, the Tron trilogy, starting with Her, the Empire, Bantam Spectra was the publisher, and then Del Rey changed. Was the publisher and still is the publisher even to this day. It hasn't changed. So yeah, that is definitely something. Cause got a question. Has either of you heard of say those Bantam era EU fans, like have you heard of some of those saying that the EU ended as far as they knew with the Hand of Tron duology that they consider only the Tron trilogy, Jedi Academy trilogy, and maybe a few other Bantam books, and the Hand of Tron duology as like the end of the EU, and they didn't want it to like give a shot to New Jedi Order. Like, have you guys heard of that?
I did hear people saying Vision of the Future was the last story of the Star Wars universe. But thinking about it is actually stupid because even Legacy of the Force isn't last Star Wars story in
In regards to at
or
least
Crucible. And there's also another timeline, so just imagine how stupid that statement sounds in the modern times.
yeah. Clint, what are you gonna say?
Uh, I think I might have heard of it, but it's rather fuzzy, honestly. And I would agree with Dylan on that one. It would seem rather dumb nowadays, to like think like that would have been like the end of the expanded universe from that point.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Like people consider like Heir of the Empire and Tron Trilogy at the beginning, with the Hand of Tron duology like the end. And I mean, if you personally think that, cool, but keep it to yourself and
Yeah.
don't chastise others from to grab, New Jedi Order, Legacy of the Force, or others. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess that's people for you. So yeah, so that's how Herod the Empire. Okay, got a question to you guys. In the 2000s, did you ever hear about Herod the Empire or some of its elements like Tron? Like, did you ever hear about it growing up?
Early
Fire
2000s.
Coruscant.
Early 2000s. I wouldn't have really heard of names like Thrawn, not until like not until like the later 2000s when I had access to the internet and Wikipedia and such. But a name like that would have been a name and even a face of that's Thrawn and stuff would be kind of just a glimpse and stuff. I wasn't like that too fully focused on like that era, in in that time and stuff. So yeah, characters like Thrawn or Mara Jade and stuff, they would have. Although then again, Mara Jade actually I kind of knew a lot more of than Thrawn. So yeah, like names like that I never really fully knew early 2000s wise, because I only just pretty much knew because I was like still very young, and B, I was more focused on like the prequel movies at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same campus you, Clint, with the exception that I actually heard of specific characters like Mara Jade, Tron, maybe in the late 2000s, but actually I think I've heard more of them until the 2010s. Because in the 2000s, I was all on board with the prequels and the original trilogy. Like I was all
Yeah.
on board with that shit. Like that was what I was like into so much. Like the only things I knew that were Star Wars in my eyes and my attention was the prequels, the originals, the Clone Wars multimedia project, several video games. The only thing I can think of that I could actually say that I heard a few sources of Tron Trilogy, but I didn't know they came from the Tron Trilogy until much later after researching, was in Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, because that game actually did play in the 2000s in a computer, and there were a few elements from Heir of the Empire and the rest of the Tron Trilogy thrown in there. Like for example, Wayland was mentioned there. Obviously, Coruscant was there. Obviously, as well. Oh, Nogri. Nogri. Actually, I didn't know that Nogri were from Heir of the Empire until years later. So, like,
Oh,
I had elements of the Tron trilogy there. I just never knew until years later from where they came from. So, there's
Yeah.
and let's see. I knew about the character Mara Jade, and before even reading the Tron Trilogy. And if I remember this correctly, Garmbel Iblis appears in the Force Unleashed video game, so
yes.
I
Yeah.
think that counts.
I think it counts because Garmbel Iblis, he appears in the Tron trilogy as far as I know. I think it was in the first book
And
or the second book.
I think Garmbel Iblis also gets a reference in the Revenge of the Sith novelization.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, apparently there were some elements from the Tron trilogy that were in our faces that entire time, but we never knew that they came from the Tron trilogy.
Yeah. Also to add, my recognition to the character Mara Jade really actually came from the game Empire at War.
Mm.
It was, I forget which one it was. It was either the first or the second one, but she
There's only
was like
one
a
Empire at War
character that
game.
you could use,
Mm.
that you could use, and yeah, that's kind of where I recognized her from. I
Wait,
never played the
are you
game, but I
sure?
always watched stuff from.
Hey, Clay, are you sure it was Empire War, not Galactic Battlegrounds?
Mara Jade is in Empire at
Th-
War because I do remember playing like a
yeah,
bot
that's right.
match a few years ago, and she definitely appeared in I think it was part of the Empire, so obviously not canon. So yeah, she's in Empire at War, the 2006 RTS game, by the way, Clint. There's only one. The other RTS games before Empire at War were Galactic Battlegrounds. So
I see.
yeah. So yeah, did either of you guys play Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Thief? You know, the short expansion game for the first Jedi Knight game that is basically you playing as Mara Jade.
Force Dark Forces 2, you mean?
Yeah, Dark Forces 2, which is the first Jedi Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, about that. I tried to install that and the thing crashed. So,
Okay.
oh,
I guess that's one. I myself have not played Mysteries of the Thief. Like, I haven't. I know Mara Jade's in it. I also know Kyle Katarn also is there, but I have not played it. Don't know if
I
either
mean,
of you guys.
Mysteries of the Sith is an interesting thing because it explains why Mara Jade was in Dark Empire.
Which,
You can think about it. Surprisingly, both sources came out in 1991.
yeah, indeed. Oh, speaking of that, in regards to the Empire, so I got a question, guys. Okay, it seems that Heir of the Empire is the most popular of the 1991 material Star Wars. But do you think Dark Empire was just as popular, or maybe a bit more, or no, it didn't get to the same level of popularity as Heir of the Empire?
I think
Honestly, don't
Dark
know.
Empire was more controversial than popular.
Yeah, I'd probably say so too as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised considering that even back then, I think it was Timothy Zahn who said it that he wasn't a fan of what Dark Empire was doing in a few areas. I think even Tom Beich said in an interview that that some things he said that he didn't like that apparently were before Dark Empire came out. Don't remember because apparently Timothy Zahn and Tom Beich they apparently made a deal in which each one will basically review each other's material. Like for example, Tom Beich would read Heir of the Empire, while Timothy Zahn would read Dark Empire, and they give feedback to each other. And actually, some of the
Yeah.
feedback that Tom Beich gave, like for example, Heir of the Empire not being action packed enough, apparently was taken into consideration for Dark Force Rising, which
This is the interesting thing I know is originally Dark Empire was meant to take place before Heir to the Empire. Timothy Zahn was being a prick and he didn't want to reference Dark Empire in the novel, which was result, which is why Dark Empire is chronologically after Heir to the Empire, despite coming out at the same year. Like, if you think about it, it's actually terrible storytelling because not only the Tron Trilogy wasn't finished, you already introduced the sequel. Like, who does that?
well, yeah, that definitely is not that good. However, thankfully, Tron Trilogy and Dark Empire they have 1 year of difference. So at least the Tron Trilogy itself could still be fit in 9 wise. So either way, we didn't get any major continuity problems in there. So and the ones we got were minor that could easily be dealt with. So not much issues there with that. Uh,
No, 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 I'm not saying there was issues. It's just bad storytelling, and they were extremely lucky that it all somehow fit.
yeah, I think I can see your point there. Yeah. So Do you think speaking of Heir of the Empire coming first, over Dark Empire? Do you think do you think Timothy Zahn, just because he wanted the book to be placed before, because he didn't want to reference it, do you think that's why it came out before Dark Empire, or it's just because the book was finished before Dark Empire was done? As in, what do you think are the reasons that Heir of the Empire came first before Dark Empire? Because I do find it interesting that Dark Empire was originally scheduled to be chronologically before Heir of the Empire, but then the change was there because Timothy Zahn. I'm wondering if the same probably is the case with the release dates of the book and the comic, like, or maybe I'm just I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm just saying crazy shit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Honestly, I don't know.
I don't really know.
Okay, then let's ignore that. So,
But if you kind of think about it from this perspective, I mean, you just read Heir to the Empire and then read the Dark Empire. You're not really concerned what happens to Leia, Luke, or Orlando because you know they're gonna be alive and well, at least a year after. So just think about it. That's
well,
just bad storytelling.
that is true. Though I don't know. Though I don't know that. Though I actually don't know if it was even in the cards to kill Luke, Han, and Leia, because as far as I know, even like George Lucas at that like at the time, like he didn't really want to kill the three of them. Even in New Jedi Order, he didn't want to kill them. So I wonder if that same policy was there even in 1991. Like I'm wondering. Like, do you think that George Lucas still had to, even at that time, the policy of don't kill Han, Leia, and Luke?
I guess. And this book and Dark Empire have started this weird trend in the 1990s where the New Republic slash the Rebel Alliance is constantly fighting a new Imperial Warlord every freaking year and week, which was getting really, really tired by 1990s,
To be
late
fair,
1990s.
that's more Bantam, because Dark Horse definitely they were doing different stuff. Not they weren't just stuck in Post of the Jedi. They were doing Tales of the Jedi and some other stuff. So but yeah, Bantam they definitely were like doing Imperial Warlord of the Week like every single time. Like yeah, Tron was awesome, and yeah, you could kind of give it past Admiral Dahl and Jedi Academy trilogy, but I think that's as far as it should go, honestly.
Yes, I mean, seriously, all the way to 19 ABY? That's too much.
It is too much. I mean, yeah, we get it. There were indeed warlords and moths that were governing the several parts of the galaxy after the Empire was massively defeated in the Battle of Endor. We get that, but can we get a bit more unique villains? There were those few bright spots that we definitely got. Not an Imperial Warlord, definitely something more different, like the Corellian Trilogy. Like that one, actually, it was not an Imperial Warlord. It was more of a civil war of sorts in Corellia. So the Corellia system. So we definitely had those bright spots, but yeah, most of it Imperial Warlord of the Week. Like we didn't have much in terms.
Now
of...
the sequel trilogy and Disney Star Wars is like trying to extend over this concept because if you watch The Mandalorian, you see there are constantly this rebel outpost, right? Not rebel outpost, Imperial remnants somewhere in the Outer Rim, and then the Rise of Skywalker basically ends in 35 ABY, which means like seriously, they lasted longer than the EU, which I thought that was one of the few good things the Disney Star Wars didn't do, but ended up being worse.
Lol. That's something. There is that. So yeah. Oh, by the way, I just read right now that apparently when Timothy Zahn was working on the novel, that apparently Lucas Licensing they requested that he would incorporate some of the material from Western Games' Star Wars: The Role Playing into his work and keep continuity with it, and many important elements such as the Interdictor class Star Destroyer originate in those source books. So So apparently, even before Jedi Academy trilogy was, like referencing other books and the books and the comics, because it referenced both the Tron Trilogy, Dark Empire. Apparently, Heir of the Empire was starting referencing a few other previous material from the expanded universe, which that's interesting. I actually didn't know that one. So there is that. So, anything else to mention in regards to Heir of the Empire's impact on the EU or Star Wars?
What was it? Talonkar's ship was called the Wild Card.
Yes.
Unintended. Like, seriously, do not name that. It's not as atrocious as our father's ship, but seriously, what kind of name is that?
That's something. Though, fun fact about that sort of the Action 6 transports, they actually appeared in Attack of the Clones. Yeah, that type of ship.
Yeah, that was what I'm trying to say.
So it is interesting. Like, so another thing from the Tron trilogy was in the prequels, but we didn't notice until now.
Yeah, there are many reference to the EU some people might not catch. The movies.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, most probably don't even know that Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber actually chronologically originated in Tales of the Jedi.
Zerkun.
Yep, indeed. So yeah. Anyway, so any other things that Heir of the Empire did to influence Star Wars?
I think that's it for me.
That one?
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, then shall we end it now?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Well, then let's go with conclusion. Who wants to go first?
I'll say.
Okay.
Well, Heir to the Empire, let's see. I remember reading it about like 2 years ago. And it actually felt like the natural continuation of the original trilogy. If you like the sequel trilogy, I'm not gonna say what you should like, but to me, the Heir to the Empire felt like what actually happened to these heroes because their actions were more believable, and I think it was for the people in the 1990s also. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, Clint.
Well, while I haven't exactly read this book series, even though I do highly want to read this eventually when I get my hands on it, I have to say that I do think that this is indeed one of the few best things from the expanded universe. Along with many others, and it's it's still, I would say it still holds up to this very day and should be remembered as one of the few things that pioneered and got the ball rolling for the expanded universe and all of Star Wars that we know of to this day. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, as for me, well, I say Heir of the Empire. Besides, happy 30th anniversary. Besides that, yeah, this is definitely worth reading nowadays, and obviously the entire Tron trilogy should be read nowadays, especially for those that are interested in seeing how the expanded universe dealt with post Jedi era stuff. Even though chronologically, yes, there are a few other books like Tris Bakura that happen in between Return of the Jedi and Heir of the Empire. You could still read this one, no problem. You don't need to go chronologically, so definitely give it a shot. And in regards to Heir of the Empire and its legacy to Star Wars, well, all I gotta say is you did pretty good. So, yep. And I think that's all I gotta say, because I don't have much to mention here, unless sometime in the future when we actually do make a review on this book and the Tron trilogy, that's where I may have more to say. But right now, yeah, I don't have much to say other than happy 30th anniversary here at the Empire, and that's pretty much it. So this is General CJG and Clint and Doan pretty much signing out on this one, and we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars. Bye bye.
Later.